Hey, what's up guys? It's Clinton Davis, and let's just get into it. So the first thing I want to talk about today is a developing story of Deplorable Gate, which has now become Irredeemable Gate, so it's a double gate. So for those of you who might not have noticed, Tim Kaine and Mike Pence, the vice presidential candidates, are very much opposed to slinging mud, unlike their presidential counterparts. So there's an interview right here where Tim Kaine addresses what he thinks about Hillary Clinton calling half of Trump supporters irredeemable. She's called them irredeemable now instead of deplorable. So it's a double gate, like I said. But first I want to show you some other parts of the interview because, like I said in my last video, I don't usually like to take clips out of context. So let's go.
Last 2 weeks, Donald Trump has gained ground, including in swing states. So what has changed?
Well, look, the race is about where it was when we went into the two conventions. It was essentially dead heated into the two conventions. After the second convention, we got a lift, which you always do out of the convention. But it is tightened up because, Martha, as you know, I think even from your discussions with voters, we are a divided nation. We are politically very divided, and that is reflected again and again in so many of our elections. And maybe, again, especially because I come from Virginia, which is one of those battleground states where it's been awful close recently. This is just who we are as a country, and that puts the burden on our shoulders to make the best positive case we can over the next 50-plus days.
So yeah, if you haven't heard, the polls are coming closer between Trump and Hillary. Trump is getting closer and closer. In some polls, he is leading, so this is something to really worry about. Oh God, we're gonna die. So now the reporter is gonna ask Tim Kaine about how they're gonna bring in voters, because a lot of people are saying they won't bring in voters because Hillary Clinton, even though she's not Trump, she's still very unliked by the general population. So how does he answer that? Let's see.
When you hear voters like that and really disgust and the lack of enthusiasm, you heard the mayor of Dayton say they're really worried, she's a Democrat, that they're not going to get the voters out. How do you turn this around with those voters who haven't decided? They know Hillary Clinton.
Great question. So we put some basic issues on the table. Do you believe in climate science or don't you? Voters do, and so do Hillary and I. Trump does not.
Okay, so one thing I would say to that is, if you do believe in climate science, then why are you taking money from the fracking industry?
Do you believe that women should make their own health care decisions or don't you? Hillary and I do, and so do voters. Donald Trump does not. Do you believe in LGBT equality or don't you? We do. Trump doesn't.
Now, just to clarify, Trump did say that he would keep us safe from a hateful foreign ideology and stop attacks from LGBT individuals on that front. He never said anything about a hateful domestic ideology, hence getting Mike Pence as his running mate.
And finally, do you believe that we need to do something about the cost of college or don't you? We do, and Donald Trump's Trump University suggests he doesn't.
Well, you do now, since you won the nomination against Bernie and had to attract some of his voters, or attempt to. But I don't know if Hillary really supports doing something about the cost of education. I honestly don't think so.
We have got to make the case on these key differences.
Haven't you been doing that all along?
No, they actually haven't been doing some of those things all along.
Both making our positive case, but also pointing out some of the very disturbing aspects. For example, this issue about the birther controversy, which is so painful. This isn't just a semantical thing. This is so painful to so many Americans because they remember our history. An African American was not allowed to be a citizen, whether slave or free, born here or born elsewhere, until we fought a civil war and enacted the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. So when Donald Trump, for 5 years, as you pointed out, has perpetrated this bigoted lie that President Obama is not a citizen, it reminds people of the most painful part of the history of this country. And I hope that someone will ask Donald Trump, when you were doing that, did you believe it? And if you believed it, how could you have been so gullible or conspiratorial? Or if you didn't believe it, what were you doing dragging us back to the most painful chapter in American life? Who were you trying to appease by doing that? That question still needs to be answered.
See, that's actually a really powerful speech because while there's nothing wrong with being from Kenya or being a Muslim, there is something wrong with because you can't say you hate black people and you don't want a black person to be president, which is essentially what the birther movement was. It was a way to label Obama because they couldn't just say he's a black man and should not be president. They had to say he wasn't born here or he was a Muslim. You have to understand that even though that Donald Trump did start the birther movement in order to try to help Hillary advance in the election, we have to understand that it's not on Hillary that this happened. There was the clip where she said, he says he's a Christian and I believe him. Of course, that is trying to play into the fear that Donald Trump had instilled in people. We can't deny that that's what that was. But we have to understand that Donald Trump started a movement that was filled with bigotry and hatred, not much unlike what he is doing now. But let's continue watching this interview. The part you've all been waiting for.
Ken, I want to go to some things that Hillary Clinton has said. You've explained Secretary Clinton's basket of deplorables comments by saying some Trump supporters are motivated by dark emotions born out of anxiety over changing demographics. But you said that transitional anxiety will go away, while Secretary Clinton said those people are irredeemable. Does she believe there are people in this country who are irredeemable?
Well, look, she is very worried, as am I, about the deplorable motivations of those who would question President Obama's citizenship, or people like David Duke who are doing robocalls saying people should vote for Donald Trump. We've expressed it differently, but you have to call out these dark emotions, because if you let them pass, or you actually can let them grow. But I think the obligation that we have, and Secretary Clinton, Hillary said this too, is while that is a motivation of some of the Trump supporters, and we won't get them, I do have confidence over time that that kind of motivation is reducing. There are other Trump voters who are really concerned about economic anxieties, not demographic issues, but economic anxieties, and we have an obligation to speak to them and to make the case that our economic plan, which Moody's says will grow the economy by 10.5 million jobs, is better for them than a Trump plan, which Moody's says will shrink the economy by 3.5 million jobs.
So is it appropriate to use the word irredeemable?
That's not a word I would use. I wouldn't use it. I think we would be unrealistic to think that some people are going to fundamentally change their view. If they've clung to the view for 5 years, as Donald Trump has, that President Obama is not a citizen of this country, I don't think they're going to change their views. But Martha, here's what I've seen in Virginia. The state I was When I was born, my state wouldn't let you go to school together if your skin color was different, and wouldn't let women go to the University of Virginia. And guess what? Our economy was in the bottom 15. Today, we've opened the doors of opportunity, and our economy is in the top 10. And people who fought it every step of the way have realized, wait a minute, we're better when we let everybody around the table. We're actually a stronger state. I've seen that transition work in my state, from fighting against equality, fighting against inclusion, to embracing it and being stronger as a result. That's what stronger together means. I've seen it work in Virginia, and I know that that's the path we're on as a nation.
Wow. Tim Kaine is a very powerful speaker, much more powerful than Hillary or Trump, and Hillary and Trump combined. While Hillary and Trump have gotten some people motivated, they kind of lack the ability to get people motivated and powered up. But when you hear speeches like that from Tim Kaine, I think Tim Kaine is a true progressive who will fight for the values that he believes in, and many of which are also issues that I believe in. I also think that the issue of not using or using the word irredeemable or the word deplorable are simply just the difference between Hillary and Tim Kaine, as that Tim Kaine is kind of a cut and paste politician, and I don't mean that in a bad way or a good way, but he's been trained to not use certain words because they could hurt your image as a politician. And that seems to be really the only reason that he would choose not to use the word deplorable or irredeemable. But really, that's okay. I don't really care. At least he's giving a speech that is powerful and has a good message that we should all get behind. And I just realized I cover vice presidents a lot, probably because they're a lot easier to listen to without just exploding. You know, Mike Pence and Tim Kaine, while I disagree with Mike Pence on a lot of things, they're both just so much more respectful than Hillary or Trump, especially Trump. And the rest of the interview is about the Colin Powell emails, which is an invasion of privacy, so I'm not going to focus on that. So what I do get out of this interview is that I think that Tim Kaine can pick up some of the slack from speeches like the one he gave during this interview. He is a very powerful speaker and knows how to get a message across. So the more we see of Tim Kaine in the media, the more I think people will start to view Hillary Clinton favorably. A lot of people believe that you can tell a lot about someone by the people they choose to associate with, and if that's true, I would love Hillary Clinton because Tim Kaine is a fantastic person. Plus, what you got to understand is that the vice president does have a pretty big role in the presidency, so if you got someone like Tim Kaine in the White House, I mean, that's positive. It's a good addition to having Hillary Clinton, and it kind of balances out her neocon positions and brings a more liberal perspective. Now, I don't know this for sure, but I think having Tim Kaine as her VP could bring Jill Stein in, could bring some Jill Stein voters in, especially voters who are turned off by her vice president, who called Barack Obama an Uncle Tom candidate. Ew. So we do have that to look forward to. Maybe we can avoid a Trump presidency by Hillary having Tim Kaine as her vice president. That man is a winner. Anyways, that being said, it's a beautiful day outside. If you live in the Midwest, I hope you go outside and enjoy it. And if you like this video, please like it. If you like it so much that you want to see more like it, please subscribe. And also, if you feel like you can add something to the conversation, please comment down below. And if you feel like you just want to leave a mean comment about how you're going to murder me, please also use the comment section in that respect. And of course, as always, if you're still watching this video, I love you more than my emotionally detached personality will allow me to express, and that frustrates me deeply.